Hi everybody, this is Simon from ShowMeThatAgain.com. This video is the first in a series of tutorials that are designed to show you how to use the Unreal Development Kit. You can download the UDK by going to their website at www.udk.com and then going to the download page and downloading from this link. Notice that it is 850 meg, so make sure you've got the bandwidth for that sort of thing. Once you've downloaded the installer for the UDK, you double click on it to run it, and the first dialog box you'll see is this. You click on I accept, and then tell it where you want to put it. As a general rule, I've kept mine on D drive, although as you can see there is nothing wrong with putting it on C drive, and click install. Let's start doing a bunch of things. We'll pause the video here. And once it's finished doing everything it needs to, you'll be presented with this dialog box. So this is what the UDK looks like when you run it for the first time. Now there are a lot of different windows and dialogues we could go through, but for now let's just do a quick tour through some of the most common ones that you'll be using. Close up the startup tips and come along to the content browser. This is where we'll be organizing and managing all of the assets that we're going to use as we build our game. If you ever need to reopen it, you can just click on this button in the toolbar here. Now in the main work area of the UDK, we have 4 large viewports. 3 of them are orthographic and 1 of them is perspective. Notice that each of the viewports has their own toolbar as well. We'll go into these a bit later. On the left hand side is what's called the toolbox. There are a bunch of tools in there. We'll have a look at them too in a little bit. Then up the top you have your main menu bar, your main toolbar, and down the bottom is a status bar with various different settings in it. Let's have a look at how we can move around in the viewports in UDK. If I come over to my perspective viewport and hold down my left mouse button, now if I drag my mouse up or down, that lets me move forward and backwards in the viewport. If I drag my mouse left and right, it lets me turn which way I'm looking on the spot without moving. If I hold down my right mouse button and drag up and down, it lets me look up and down on the spot without moving, and if I drag left and right, it lets me look left and right just as if I was holding the left mouse button. If I hold down the left and right mouse button together and drag up and down, you can see that we can pan up and down, and if I drag left and right, it lets me pan left and right. Now if I come over to the orthographic viewports and left click and drag, it lets me pan my 2D view. If I hold down my right mouse button and drag left and right or up and down, it pans as well. If I hold down the left and right mouse button at the same time and drag up and down, it lets me zoom in and out. Now, let's come back to the perspective viewport. We'll talk about what this red box is for soon, but for now let's just use it as a practice object. If I left click on it to select it and press the home key on my keyboard, that'll zoom in all of the viewports to my currently selected object. If I hold down the L key and left click and drag, it'll let me orbit around that selected object. If I hold down the middle mouse button and drag while I'm holding down the L key on my keyboard, that lets me pan. If I hold down the right mouse button and drag up and down while holding the L key, that lets me zoom in and out. Okay, I've loaded up one of the sample levels that comes with the UDK, and we're going to have a look at what some of these buttons in the toolbar above the viewports do. First though, let's have a look at another way that we can move around in the viewport. If I right click and hold my right mouse button down and drag up and down and left and right, I can look around in the way that we've seen previously. But while I'm holding the right mouse button down, I can also press W or S on my keyboard to move forwards and backwards while also looking. And I can also use A and D to move sideways, all at the same time while looking around, while holding my right mouse button down and dragging. So it's a really nice way of just moving around the scene and looking. Also, while you are moving and holding the right mouse button down, you can also roll the mouse wheel to speed up how quickly you move or slow down. So it gives you lots of nice control over how you can move. If you are using right click and drag and WASD to move around in your viewport, just be aware that if you press W when you don't have your right mouse button held down, it's actually a keyboard shortcut to toggle off all of the static meshes in the scene. It can be a bit scary if you don't know what's happened. So right click mouse button down, W means move forward. Right click mouse button not held down, W means toggle on and off the static meshes. Okay, let's have a look at some of these tools in the viewport toolbar up here. First one is this little down arrow. What it does is reveal a rather long menu for the viewport with a whole bunch of things that you can turn on and off. Let's just skip over that one for now. The next one along that I want to look at is the viewport type. If you click on that, it lets you toggle between the different views this viewport can use. We'll go all the way back to perspective. The next one along is the real-time button. If I turn that on, I can see that the lighting in the atmosphere has changed a little bit, but the best demonstration of what's going on when you turn that on is if I just come over here to one of these lights, and have a look at it nice and close so I can see it. You can see that now that I've turned on the real-time button, my animated texture is playing in the viewport in real time. Another thing that looks quite cool in the viewport with the real-time button on are the trees. They actually blow in the breeze while you're working around in your scene. It's quite cool. For now, let's just turn that off. Now, let's zoom out again so I can see more of my scene. And have a look at some of the view modes that are available. So I've got my brush wireframe that lets me see my scene in wireframe. I've got normal wireframe. I've got unlit. This is sort of what your scene would look like if you were using Unity 3D, the indie version. Then you've got the lit view. Ooh, look, shadows. Then you've got your detail lighting, which lets you see just how the lighting is being put onto the surfaces, but you can also see bump maps and normal maps. Then you've got your lighting only mode. Then you've got your light complexity, your texture density, your shader complexity, your light map density, and your lighting only with texel density. I'll just close this. And the lighting only with texel density, what it's showing you is the effect that the lights in the scene are having on the surfaces of your scenery and environment, but also these grids here that you can see on the surface are giving you an indication of the UV layout for the textures on those meshes. Okay, the next button along, let's just pop back to lit mode actually, and move back out a bit. Next button along is the G button, or the game view mode. When you turn that on, basically what it does is hides all of the gizmo and gadgets that we use for editing objects in our scene. It's a nice way to get a bit of a quick preview of what our scene's going to look like in the game. Okay, there's a couple of things over here we'll skip across. And down on the end here, there's the play in the viewport button. If you click on that, it'll actually start up the Unreal Engine in the viewport here, and you can play your game in real time, which is very cool. I'm not going to do it now because my poor little laptop is already struggling enough with video recording and running the UDK at the same time. You also have the option to tear this viewport off as a floating copy, and you have the option to maximize your viewport. Come on, little laptop, you can do it. There you go. You can toggle that on and off like that. You can do it. You can do it. There we go. Okay, so that's most of the common tools that you'll be using along there in the viewport toolbars. Okay, let's take a break from editing things in the editor, and what we're going to do now is have a look at how to set up a new project in the UDK. Now, the first thing we need to do is give a bit of a hat tip to Horrence, who has written probably the granddaddy of all getting started in UDK tutorials. If you go to his website and go to the tutorials section and go to creating a UDK game, you come to this page where he's got a long set of instructions for setting up a new project. Now, we're not going to do everything that Horrence covers here, but we certainly are going to do some of them. So thank you very much to Horrence for creating an absolutely excellent tutorial for people getting started. Also, sorry if it's Horrence's. I couldn't tell. I'm not sure. Okay, so let's go along to our folder here and have a look at what was installed when we installed the UDK. I've got 4 main folders. We've got the binaries, we've got development, engine, and UDK game. Now, binaries is basically a bunch of stuff, the actual program files for running the UDK. Come along here and have a look at development. This is pretty much where we'll be storing any scripts we write to customize our game. Come along and look at engine. There's a bunch of things in here that UDK uses to look after itself and do everything it needs to. And generally speaking, we don't change anything in here, but there's a couple of small exceptions. We'll have a look at them in a second. And the last one is UDK game, which is where we store all of our content and assets and configuration files. Now there's a bunch of things in here. The only ones we really need to worry about at the start are the config and the content folders. So you've got your development folder where you store your scripts, and you've got your UDK game folder where we're going to put our content and our configuration files. So the first thing we're going to do is make a couple of basic scripts in our development source folder. So we've got all these things in here. We need to make a folder for ourselves. I'm going to suggest that we call this first project that we're creating game_tutorial and go inside that. I'm using game underscore as a prefix so that if I make multiple other projects and prefix all of them with game, all of my projects are nicely organized together here alphabetically in the folder listing instead of having to sort through all these unusual names. So game_tutorial. Now inside of this we need to make a folder and call it classes with a capital C like that and go inside that. So I'm inside the development folder, inside the source folder. I've made a folder called game_tutorial, and inside of that I made a folder called classes, and I made sure it had a capital C. Now we need to make 3 files here. I'm going to right click and go new text document, and I'm going to call the first one my game info. Notice I've got a capital M, capital G, capital I. You don't have to have it exactly like that, but if we need to refer to this in configuration files later, so just make sure whatever you call this one, you call it the exact same thing in the configuration files. So my game info.text, and I'll change the txt to a UC and hit enter. If you choose to change a file name extension, go yes, thank you. And then we're going to right click on that and say edit with notepad. Now I'm going to cheat. I'm going to copy and paste some code. This comes from Horance's tutorial. If I come over here onto my other screen and go copy, paste. We're setting up a class called mygameinfo. Notice that it has the same name as the file. And it's extending a built-in class called UT_deathmatch. It's good because it means that this class is going to inherit a whole bunch of functionality from the built-in Unreal Tournament deathmatch game. So I'll go save and minimize that. The next file that I need to make in here, new text document, is the myplayercontroller.uc file. So I'll go myplayercontroller and change txt to UC. Hit enter, yes. And then right click on that and edit that with notepad. And I'm going to cheat again here. I'm going to go and copy and paste the code like this. You can pause the video and type this code in, or you can get it from the link that I'm going to provide with these videos. And I'll click save. We're not too worried about explaining every part of the code here. We're just putting in like some small samples of scripts that you can use to customize the way that UDK works. So I'll minimize that. I'll right click, new text document, and I'll make a third document which I'll call my pawn. Change txt.uc and hit enter. Yes. I'll right click on my pawn and edit with notepad, and I'm going to go and copy the code again. and paste that in there. You'll see this one's quite a bit longer, and without going into great gory detail, it's basically got a bit of code here for letting us do a simple third-person camera. So I'll save that and minimize that, and then we've got our 3 files set up there. That's stage 1, part A, so to speak. The second part is to set up the configuration files to be able to use these. Okay, so let's go and edit some of these config files so that the game uses our scripts. What we'll do is we'll go back to our install folder, and we'll go into engine, into config, and we're looking for base engine.ini. Now, before we edit it, what we have to do is right click on it and go properties and turn off the read only attribute. Most of these files are set to read only, and if you open the Notepad++ and change them and then try and save, it just won't save. So I'll right click on it now that I've turned off read only, and I'll edit with Notepad++. And what I want to find in here is the system settings heading. So what I need to do is scroll down to about, see if I can find it this time, system settings, keeps going. No, I can never find it. So Control F, system settings, oh, look at that. And here it is here. Now there's a bunch of things that you can turn on and off here, but the ones that I generally turn off that give me a bit of a frame rate increase on my humble little laptop without losing too much image quality is motion blur. I tend to set that to false, which you can do like that. And the other one is radial blur. Allow radial blur, allow radial blur. Where are you? Allow radial blur. So if I set that one to false too, I'll get a slightly better frame rate in my in editing and playing UDK. So I'll click save. Now if you've got a nice computer, you don't need to do that. So I'll close that and close that. The next thing that we need to do is tell UDK where our custom script folder lives. So to do that, we need to go back to our root folder and into UDK game, into config, and we're looking for the file called defaultengine.ini. There it is. Now remember, before we try and edit it, we have to right click, go to properties and turn off read only. And then I can right click on it and go edit with Notepad++. Now, what we're looking for in here is a heading called unrealed.editorengine. So unrealed.editorengine, and at the moment it has edit packages equal UTGame and UTGame content. We need to add a new line underneath here. The order is important, so this line rating needs to be at the bottom. And what we're going to do is type in plus edit packages. Oops, sorry, my mistake. We need to say plus mod edit packages equals game underscore tutorial. So the two that were already there say plus edit packages. Our line that we're adding says plus mod edit packages. And notice that I've capitalized the first letter of each of those words. And that game underscore tutorial is the name of the folder that we made over here. So we can save that and check over here in my list of things. Yes, that looks like it's good. So we've saved that and we'll close that. The next file that we need to edit is defaultgame.ini. So I'll have a look here, defaultgame.ini. So I'll right click, properties, turn off the read only and go OK. And right click and go edit with Notepad++. And what we're looking for in here is a section called engine.gameinfo. Fortunately, it's right up the top. Now we need to add a few things here. We need to set the default game to game underscore tutorial.mygameinfo. So let's have a look here. We're looking for default game. At the moment, it's utgame.deathmatch. So I'm going to overwrite that, and instead I'm going to say game underscore tutorial dot, checking over here on my list, my game info. So my game info is that file that we made in our game tutorial folder. Notice you don't put the .uc on the end. The next thing that we need to change is player controller class name. This down here is currently working with utgame.ut player controller. So I'll select all of that and I'm going to replace it with game underscore tutorial dot my player controller. So that's the second thing we need to do in here. And then the third thing we need to do is to add default map prefixes. So we've got a couple down here. DM, CTF, VCTF. Basically what these prefixes do, when we load a level into the Unreal Engine, the prefix of the level name tells the editor which game type to use to play it when you preview it. So we're going to come along after this third one that's already here. We're going to add a new line and then we're going to type plus default map prefixes equals brackets prefix equals speech marks, and the prefix that I'm choosing to use is GT. So for all the levels that I create for my game underscore tutorial project, I'm going to prefix the name of those levels with GT, and that way UDK will know to use game underscore tutorial to play them. So GT, comma, and then B uses common package equals false. In all honesty, I have no idea what that means yet. Game type equals and then double speech marks. And now we're going to tell it what we want to do is use game underscore tutorial dot my game info. And then speech marks and close the brackets. Now, just a little word of warning here. Be very careful about copying and pasting code or text from Microsoft Word into a file like this, or anything else basically. You can run into a lot of trouble. That's very hard to dig out and find out what's wrong. Word often uses custom characters for double speech marks, and when you paste it in, it looks like it's okay, but it's actually a slightly fancier version of a double speech mark that you can't quite see, but the code doesn't know that it's the same as this character. So I generally try to avoid at all copying and pasting from Word. If you do need to, one little trick you can use is to copy and paste from Word into Notepad, and Notepad will scrub off all those fancy characters. Then you copy and paste from Notepad into the end file that you're targeting here, and it should be fairly safe. But for now, that's all we need to do in here. We've changed three things. We've told the default game to look at our MyGameInfo file. We've told the player controller class name to be MyPlayerController, and we've added in a default map prefix here, which helps UDK know which game type or which game info type to use with our levels, as long as we prefix them with GT. So let's go save and close that and close that. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is to delete out a couple of files here. We want to delete udkengine.ini and udkgame.ini. So there's udkengine, UDK game. We're going to delete those. That might seem horrific. Oh no, you've deleted the files. But what we're going to do now is rebuild our project, and it'll make a new version of those two files that we just deleted from those default versions of them up here that we just edited. So what we need to do is go along to our root folder, UDK9, and into the binaries folder, and we're going to load up the Unreal front end. Just loading, it's loading. Okay, here it is, and there's a few different things in here. We're not going to go through a whole bunch of them in great detail at the moment. All we need to know is to come over to Make and click on the little arrow and choose Full Recompile. And let it have a little think here. We get a bit of a compile log happening here. And fingers crossed there aren't any big flashing red warnings coming through. It's compiling. It's compiling. Normally, when people record video tutorials at this part, they'd say, I'm just going to pause the video. It's actually a little bit problematic for me because I'm recording the video on my laptop and I'm recording the audio on my tablet. So I don't pause it. I stall. I talk about something to distract you from the fact that I haven't paused it. And analyzing, it's still compiling. And once we finish this compiling process, what it'll do is it'll have written a new version of those UDK files for us. Succeeded! Excellent. That's what I wanted to see. So we can close that again now. So we've set up the scripts in our development source folder, and we've set up our config files in the UDK game config folder. Now what we're going to do is go inside the UDK game content folder and make a subfolder here for us to store all of our project's assets. So I'll make a new folder and I'm going to call it game_tutorial. I don't actually remember if it needs to be exactly the same name as our scripts folder, but I'm going to do that just out of sheer paranoia. Okay, so inside of our game tutorial folder, I'm going to make a couple of subfolders. I'm going to make one called levels, and I'm going to make one called UPK. Make that one all capital letters. And I'm probably going to make one called textures. And because I've capitalized other things, I'd better do the same here. So levels is where I'm going to save any, well, levels or environments that I create in the editor. And textures is where I'm going to save any bitmaps that I want to bring in and use in my game engine. Now, when you bring in a texture, it can get saved into a package, which is in the next folder. But I like to have a folder called textures where I keep the original ones so that I can make edits to them if I need to. The third folder is UPK. When we import assets into the content browser in the UDK editor, they're saved into files called UPK files or packages. And just to keep everything nice and tidy, I keep them in this folder here like that. So that's our basic subfolder setup for our content folder for our project. Okay, so now that we've created our content subfolders, what we can do is go back into the editor and start making a basic first level. So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to go up to binaries. We're going to double click on Unreal Frontend and oh look, here it is already. And then in the Unreal Frontend, I'm going to click on Editor to load up the editor and oh look, here it is already. Okay, so here we are where we were previously when we were looking at the user interface. There's nothing in our scene yet, but let's just start by saving this. So I'll go File, Save Current Level, and just make sure I've got it in the right place here. 09 UDK Game Content Game Tutorial, and then my levels subfolder that I've just made. And I'll call this one GT_tutorial01. Now notice that I've got that prefix GT. That's tied in with the reason that we put in that default map prefix and referenced GT in the config files. So we'll go save. So now we've got a blank empty scene where we just want to create some basic stuff for a test character to run around on. Now we've mentioned previously about this red cube being something that we'd come back and have a look at later. Well, now it's that time. This red cube is called the brush, and what it does is it allows us to specify a piece of space or a volume in our 3D world and then fill it with a virtual solid. Now the way that we're going to do that is if you look over here in the toolbox, by default our brush is a cube shape, but it's also, you can change it to a cone or some sort of stairs or a cylinder, but for now we'll just go with the cube. And what we're going to do is rather than just if I select it, I could manually manipulate it here with the move or rotate or scale tools. But what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to come up to this Q button. I'm going to be tricky and right click on it. And that'll bring up the Brush Builder Cube Properties dialog where I can manually type in how big I want this thing to be. So I'm going to change the X value to 1024. I'm going to change the Y value to 1024. And I'll probably set the Z value to something like 20, like that. Then I'll go close. Now, as of yet, I haven't actually made any virtual solid or any such thing as that. I've just reshaped the brush. If I want to actually make some solids from that brush, what I do now is I come over to my toolbox and I choose one of these operations here. So I've got CSG add. If I click that guy, it will now fill my brush with a virtual solid. That virtual solid sits in the level there like that. If I grab my move tool again and move my brush up, you can see that the brush is indeed a separate object from that virtual solid that's just been made. Now there's a bunch of things you can do with constructive solid geometry, but we're not going to get too heavily into that at the moment, but maybe just to be a smart aleck, we'll just do one more thing. So if I go to the box again and right click on that, and I might say, okay, Mr. Box, I want you to be 50 by 50 by 50. And he's over there like that, so I'll just close that. Now if you'll remember, if you hold down the L key on your keyboard and then left click and drag, that'll orbit around your selected object. If I right click and drag, oops, not on the arrow, if I right click and drag while still holding the L key on my keyboard, that lets me zoom in. And what I'm going to do, because I've still got my move tool selected here in the main toolbar, and I've got that reshaped brush there, I'm going to click and drag that down like that. And in the side viewport, oops, too far. If I come over here, I can come up here and deliberately just position it on the ground there like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over and add another virtual solid in there like that. Now if I hold down the L key on my keyboard and left click and drag around, you can see that it's created a virtual solid there inside the brush. If I move it away, there she goes. Okay, so let's move this brush out of the way now, and what we're going to do next is look at how we can create a simple light and a test player and preview this little simple level that we've made. Okay, so now that we've created a super basic level, basically just a box, what we want to do now is just set up a few test objects so that we can have a run around on it and see what it looks like. Now, the first thing we need to do is chuck in a simple light, because at the moment we're on unlit. If you go to lit, it's black because there's no light. So what we're going to do is we're going to just hold down the L key and just left click on the ground there, and that will create a simple light for us, and then I can just move it up like that. You can see the nice lighting there and the shadow there from it. So that gives us a light, and then what we can do is we can right click on the ground and say add actor, add player start. That, and it'll create a little object there with a little joystick icon, and I'll save that. Now what I can do is I can click play in viewport. So I've got my little guy there, and I can see his gun, but I can't see my level. So what I need to do is hit escape, and I need to come up to my main toolbar, and I need to say build geometry for visible levels. I've got build lighting, and along here I've got build all. So I'm just going to click the build all button. Shouldn't take long. Shouldn't take long. Swarm coordinate failed to be initialized. Come on, collecting the scene. Build progress. Shaders. Good grief, it's doing a number on us, isn't it? And there we go. So we've got a couple of messages here. Map check. Map should have kill Z set, and we'll do that in a second. But first of all, we just really want to have a run around on this thing. So I'll go plan viewport, and there we go. So there's my little box. There's that I made there in the middle. There's my big one that I can run around on. Wow, like this. I can shoot. Like that. Now I hit escape. There's a couple of things that we need to tweak on this to just make it a bit better. First thing that we need to do is go along and find this thing that it was talking about in that window, kill Z. So if I go up to view and looking for world properties, and then I'm going to, oh gosh, here we go. I'm not very good at this, but let's go. Need to go to world info, and we're looking in here for kill Z. Kill Z. Please, Ray, kill Z. Kill Z. Okay, I'm just going to have to fumble around here till I find it. It's not in there, is it? No, good on you. Or maybe it's under zone info. There it is! Woohoo! Kill Z. Whew. Okay, so at the moment it's defaulting to way down in the middle of the earth. So what we're just going to do is say, hey, you know what? Why don't you make that minus 20? Yeah, let's try that. So hit enter. Now in my side viewport, if I zoom out a bit, I can see this red line. Basically what that's saying is if your dude walks off the end of that box and starts falling down into the blackness, how far should you let him fall before you give him the... So let's go and have a look now. If I rebuild geometry, paths need to rebuild. Okay, that's right, we'll leave that for now. I just want to preview this guy. And, oh good, need to rebuild the lighting. Why wouldn't I want to rebuild it? Let's right click to set the lighting to preview. That's fine. Fine, do it all again. Collecting the scene. Oh, very nice. Okay, close and play. Now I have my lighting. If I run off the edge. Oh, ow, that looks hurty. Okay, and we're back again. Okay, so hit escape. So that's kill Z set. Let me just look over here on my list of things to cover. We also probably want to go and change another setting there. If I go view and world properties, I saw it just before. If you're in world properties, view world properties, and you come down to the world info rollout, I guess you could call it. There's a little setting in here, game type for PIE. PIE stands for play in editor. So if I change that from none to my game info, like that, and then close that, and I'll save that, and I'll say, please, Mr. UDK, play in viewport. Now I get a third person view. It's a very basic one because his well, for instance, his gun sight is somewhere unfortunate. But I can see him, a little test character running around. Wah, wah. The Schwartz is strong in you. No, shouldn't do that. Okay, so there we go. Okay, so that's just about everything that we wanted to do for our first very basic tutorial level, but there is just one little bit of fun that we can have now that we've got it, something our character can run on. If I come over here to my editor and open up the content browser and go to the second tab that we haven't looked at yet called actor classes, what I want to do is come in here down this long list of everything that I could add to my scene. I'm going to open up navigation point. And I'm going to find UDK Vehicle Factory and then open up UT Vehicle Factory. And I'm going to click on a Manta. Shove that to the side. And now I can right click on the ground here and say add UT vehicle factory Manta here. And it creates me a vehicle. Now I might as well, okay, get a Scorpion and right click and go add Scorpion factory here. And then, because it's such a large map, you see, you need vehicles to get around it. And select the cicada and right click and say add cicada factory here. Now let's just close that content browser there and make sure, yes, see now, we might just get this guy here and move him over a little bit so that you're not spawned underneath a Humvee. And now, if I save and preview in browser, oh, okay, oh, look at all these vehicles. I wonder what happens if I walk up to this guy and hit E. What about you? Yeah, baby. Come on. Oh, sorry, you okay? Anyway, I just thought that would add a bit of fun to it.